Hello and welcome to Fast Money Football for another Friday. James Sharman here with you. Albert will join me again shortly. But once again, Antonio Conte is the story, the news cycle that I'm finding most compelling this week. He's in the news once again. He really is box office these days. More quotes this week. Of course, last weekend, Spurs, his team, pulled out that incredible, maybe the result of the season, beating Man City. Two goals in injury time. City tied it up. Then Spurs came back. Harry Kane, of course, who was on his way to City this past summer, we thought, scoring the winner. All was great in Spurs land. And it got some great quotes following that match from Antonio Conte, saying that he's got one of the best squads he's ever had, believe it or not, at Tottenham, a guy that's coached Chelsea to a championship, Juventus to a championship, Inter Milan to a championship, but Spurs still one of the best squads he's ever had. He then had some fun before the Burnley match, saying, "You can make a mistake with your wife, but never with your goalkeeper or striker." That's apparently quite a well-known quote from the Italian Serie A, but I'm not quite sure what it means, but I liked it nonetheless. I think it means that striker and your goalkeeper are the two most important players on the field, even more important than your wife back home. Brave man, very brave man. But then Spurs go out and lose predictably, I think, because they're Spurs to Burnley, of all teams. Relegation threatened Burnley. Following that match, the as usual emotional Antonio Conte says a number of things, including maybe I'm just not so good. Maybe I'm not so good. Now I know last week Albert and I spoke about how we think maybe he's buying into Spurs now, and maybe he still is. But 4 losses out of 5 games. There's a lot of speculation at the moment about his future, and it flip flops. And how I feel about this situation each day, it seems. Will he stay? Will he go? He also said that managers change at Spurs, but players are always the same. And the results are also the same. So he's kind of throwing players under the bus there as well. He's going to speak to the hierarchy there, apparently. But there's a lot of speculation about will he leave before this season's out? Certainly, a lot of people believe he will leave in the summertime. Will that tarnish his reputation? I don't know. But times are ticking. Times are ticking. And he has been the favorite to be the next manager to leave a Premier League side. So it's really fascinating right now, the Antonio Conte situation. Just when we thought Spurs had it right with the right signing, it's all kind of going wrong at the moment as well. I hope he stays. I think he's the right guy. But if he leaves, where will he go? You know, there's some big clubs looking for managers this offseason, number one being Manchester United, but they could have signed him before. Anyway, a lot of speculation. I find it fascinating. What I also find fascinating was the reemergence of Harry Kane. He was just dominant against Man City. 2 goals, got the assist, had a goal disallowed, which perhaps was a little unfair. He was the best player on the pitch. Against Burnley, even, he was really good as well. Hit the woodwork, but had zero service. But he dropped deep, as always, searching for the ball. He's becoming, when he has to be, a really good midfielder because he's also a great passer of the ball. But it's interesting seeing how Kane almost joined City last year. And as the season progressed this year, he hasn't played that well. So would City still be interested in him this summer with the likes of Mbappe and Haaland being available? Well, given the form we saw last week, Harry Kane is still Harry Kane. He can still be a dominant force in the Premier League or wherever he wants to go. So if he does leave Spurs, he's still worth a lot of money. But boy, he's playing great, even if his side is not playing that great. And compare Harry Kane to his rival at Chelsea, Romelu Lukaku, who has become the manifestation of what is wrong at Chelsea. Last weekend, if you didn't hear this, against Crystal Palace, a game that they won, in fairness, but Lukaku had 7 touches. 7 touches, which is incredible. 2 of which were kickoffs, and one was an offside. So, I mean, it's just some major issues there. He was then dropped against Lille. So it got me thinking about Chelsea and their issues with strikers. Timo Werner, very expensive, has been a complete bust. Remember Alvaro Morata, highly touted, a complete bust. Fernando Torres, don't forget about him. Andrei Shevchenko, these are legends. Okay, maybe not Morata, maybe not Werner, but Torres and Shevchenko. There's history there for some reason at Chelsea and issues with strikers. To a man, they were all crap in the blue of Chelsea. Where is the next Didier Drogba? Where is the next Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank? Ida Gudjohnsen, the Iceman. They have had history with some great strikers as well, of course, but in recent history, really since Drogba, it's been a disaster. It makes it really interesting about his future there, Lukaku as well. Is he happy? And there's talk about him going back to Inter Milan at a discount rate this summer. He also, if you saw this on social media this past week, very cryptically, he posted, if you have to force it, then it probably doesn't fit. Now, I can only assume that's a dig at his manager, Thomas Tuchel, and how he's playing him in this side, because it's obviously not working. They're trying to scram this square peg into a round hole for some reason. It's too bad, because I still think he's a great player when he wants to play and when he's in the right system. But Chelsea, despite looking okay in the Champions League, beating Lille this past week, despite being world champions, there's still issues there, and I think it's going to be a fascinating summer with Romelu Lukaku and who rates him still and where he might end up if he leaves Chelsea. Then you take a guy like Wout Weghorst, Burnley's savior. We talk about these big names, the Kanes of the world and the Lukakus, but then Wout Weghorst might be the most important player right now in the Premier League, because if his plays keep Burnley up, that's worth hundreds of millions of pounds. He cost them £12 million, replacing £25 million Chris Wood, who went to Newcastle. And quite frankly, I think he's better than Chris Wood so far. He's huge, 6'6", he's mobile, he's really clever. Wood's not really hit the ground running so far at Newcastle. So when people criticize Burnley for selling their top striker, arguably, to one of their big relegation rivals, perhaps we didn't give Wout Weghorst the respect he needed. He had a goal every 2 games at Wolfsburg over 4 years. So in the Bundesliga, he got it done. And Burnley just might pull it off again. 2 points from safety and games in hand on absolutely everyone, including Brentford, by the way, who are just plummeting right now. They got 3 or 4 games on hand on them. So, Sean Dyche might be doing it again. And you could thank Wout Weghorst. I'm just putting him in there because I love using the name Wout Weghorst. It's a great name. Albert, don't you think, mate? It's a great name, Wout Weghorst?
I think it's a fantastic name, and what a signing. I think I mentioned it. If there was ever a Burnley signing, it's that man. And not only is he big, he's imposing in the air. His hold-up play is fantastic. He has great feet for a big guy, and that's rare. I mean, who's the last big man to have, touch? Maybe Peter Crouch?
I would say Peter
even
Crouch.
That's a stretch, right?
I mean, there aren't many guys nowadays who are 6'6", apart from maybe the odd centre back, maybe the odd goalkeeper, but strikers, there's very few. They stand out, right? And Crouchy, I love Crouchy, one of my favorites on and off the field. But he looked like he was a big, tall, skinny guy. Weghorst he's better built, right?
Yeah.
He moves around the field better. But yeah, he's got a great touch, and he is very much Burnley. And who'd have thought, man, if he's manages somehow to keep this team up, a team that we thought were destined finally to be relegated, what a story that is.
They have a good team there. I thought Dwight McNeil was fantastic. He's a player I think he has to move on to a bigger side. I think he's very good. Even as maybe even like a left wing back, he can play maybe in a Antonio Conte system. And speaking of Conte, his press conference is about to start. He's not at the podium yet, so I'll keep an eye on that. If something pops up, I will mention it. But you did forget to mention one key legend of a striker who went to Chelsea and failed. Radamel Falcao. Remember his loan in 2015, 2016?
Great one. That's right. He did. I forgot all about that. He was disastrous.
James, 10 games, 1 goal.
And I mean, he always fits in the whole Hulk kind of feel to me, right? That guy. He was dominant in the La Liga, and then something happened to him and he kind of fell apart. But yeah, Falcao. He was going to be a guaranteed 20 goals, right? We thought.
Yeah. I always wanted Hulk to come to the Premier League. Remember he was tearing it up for Porto, and then it was where did he go after that? I don't even remember. Somewhere in Brazil, and then he went to China.
Yeah, that's China. He was
China had all that money,
right?
And they were signing all the Brazilian players.
They're still remember Oscar? He's still there, I think.
Yeah,
and he was, I think, at one point, Oscar from Chelsea to Shanghai, I think he went to, was the highest paid footballer in world football.
Unbelievable. He was good at Chelsea, but I don't know if he deserved to be the highest. Highest paid player.
Exactly. He was a good player. You're right. He was a good player, but highest paid player in world football. Come on. Yeah. That China experiment. I mean, hey, from Rafa Benitez to Oscar, they've all been there, haven't they? And it hasn't always worked out.
You want to talk about someone who I think should be one of the highest paid players in world football, and Golo Conte. Listen to this. He essentially could complete football if Chelsea beat Liverpool in the EFL Cup final. Let me just bring it up here so I have it. So far, he's won the Premier League, the FA Cup, the Champions League, the Europa League, the Super Cup, and the FIFA World Cup. All that's left is the EFL Cup. I mean, he does get talked about a lot, but I don't think enough, because I think he really is, maybe even like a top five, definitely in the top 10 midfielders of all time.
Of all time. Wow, there's some
You
pretty
don't think so,
strong
James?
words. Well, listen, I love him, and he might well be. The record
And
speaks
a
for
World Cup
itself.
in there as well.
Yeah, no, yeah. You know what? Maybe it's time we started looking at him that way. There's been some great. I think the tough part with Conte is that he's seen as a defensive midfielder, when I think he's more than just that. When he does break forward, he's pretty good as well. He's so
Yeah.
diminutive. He plays with a smile on his face. He doesn't cause any headlines, so maybe that works against him in his image. But you could well be right in that position. I
In that
agree.
position, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
he's. I think you could be right there. Absolutely. I mean, we talk about Claude Makelele as redefining that kind of role in
Yeah.
world football, but maybe Kante's better than Makelele was, because no one's got more energy. He's 31 now too, right? I think he's a free agent very soon, and we'll find out what the plans are for the future. But he's a guy I think that could play for many more years at a very high standard. I love the guy. He's one of my favorite players in world football, because no one plays with more joy in his heart, I don't think, than Conte. And just the Energizer Bunny, wherever there's a loose ball, there he is, breaking play up. He can pass the ball, he can break forward, he does it all. Yeah, a wonderful player. What a signing he's been. I mean, obviously at Leicester, no one knew who he was. What a deal that was. And then he went to Chelsea, and people were a little bit disappointed. Well, it's a bit of a shame that he's kind of sold out. Well, now he's won Champions Leagues, and he's
Yeah.
won World Cups, and he's won FA Cups, he's won league titles again. What a player.
He just keeps winning, which is fantastic. And if you think about that Leicester team, yeah, Riyad Mahrez was important, Jamie Vardy was important, but I think if they didn't have N'Golo Conte, I don't know if they win that
I
league
think
that
you're
year.
right.
He
Well, the
was
way they
probably
played
the
too,
most
right?
important player.
The way they played, sitting back with like
Yeah,
35% possession, someone had to win the ball back at some point from the attackers, who always had more possession, and it was always him. And you're right, and just feeding the ball to Riyad Mahrez, or to Vardy. Yeah, what a team that was, man. There'd be
I
movies
know.
about that team, and all so likable as well, right? All
Danny
have
Drinkwater.
personalities. Danny Drinkwater, yeah. Ben Chilwell later on, and Wes Morgan. Some of these guys, obviously Casper was there as well, but
Robert
what a
Huth.
team.
Yeah.
Robert Huth, yeah, that's right. Some of these names you forget about, right? Because they've kind of gone in their different ways, or they've retired now. But yeah, what a team. Drinkwater,
That was a
a
special
great
team.
example though, right, Albert? He also went to Chelsea, thinking
Yeah.
that'll be a good move, and that just didn't work out. So again, it shows you how how Kante really redefined himself, more of an attacking player, I think, at Chelsea perhaps than he was at Leicester.
Yeah, and that season at Leicester, the runners up, Tottenham. I think they finished second. No, they finished third.
They should have won it.
They finished third in a two-horse race, as everyone likes to say. I think Arsenal leapfrogged them into second. But speaking of Spurs, they have a big matchup this weekend against Leeds. I wasn't sure after that Burnley match if Conte was going to be in the dugout for that one, but apparently he is. He's going to arrive at the press conference, and who knows what he's going to say. I think he's going to apologize for probably what he said, and then probably make the same comments once they lose to Leeds this weekend. Plus 275. Spurs are minus 110 favorites. I can't back either of these sides because I can't trust either of them. But one thing I do see is probably goals, because, Leeds at the moment, they're just leaking. 15th in the league at the moment. They're sliding down the table. I think let me just pull this up. In the last 3 games, 3 straight losses, James, 13 goals allowed, 56 on the season. And no Calvin Phillips still, no Liam Cooper. Bamford is still out. The spine of their team is completely gone. So it's completely understandable why they're leaking goals, and also the style of play. Bielsa won't change the way that they play. And I think this is a perfect time for Spurs to play them, coming off that result against Burnley, where Burnley were actually very good and Spurs were decent themselves. So that's why I think Spurs are still in somewhat of decent form, and attacking wise, they can score against anyone, as we saw against City. We've seen in the past as well. So I think Spurs do win this game. Do I back them? No way, but I'm definitely backing goals.
Yeah, I think they're rightly so favorites in this one. They're got goals plenty at the moment, and against that Leeds team, like you mentioned, Bielsa just won't change the way they play. And the injuries are a good excuse. Every team has them, but Leeds in particular this season have been crippled. Calvin Phillips is so important to that team, and he's been out for months. He really is the reason why that whole team ticks. So I have pity certainly for Leeds and their fans. But at some point, the coach has to say, okay, listen, we can't keep playing this way and keep getting smashed. I mean, I know they played Liverpool and they lost 6-0, but that's Liverpool. But at the same time, they were just sieves at the back. And, 3 or more goals in the last 4 games, it's just not good enough. And you
No.
do wonder about Bielsa and his future there, given that relegation is a real threat for this team. You cannot be relegated. Leeds are very ambitious. And even though he's beloved there, if he refuses to shift and change, and they get drawn into that relegation race, that's worth hundreds of millions of pounds. It can't happen. So I do wonder, I mean, I know the sack race is really interesting. I think Conte is the favorite right now still. But Bielsa can't be far behind. And it wouldn't be a popular choice for the fans who love this guy. But man, if you bring someone in who can keep them up, it's almost worth it.
Plus 300 to go down right now, just behind Antonio Conte. I'm with you. I think if it gets to a certain point, you need to bring someone in to keep this team alive because the money is so important. That TV money is huge for Premier League teams, specifically Leeds. If they go down, who knows when they'll come back up. But in terms of sacking Bielsa, I mean, it's a tough one because he's loved by the fans. He's loved by the players. He's kind of loved by everybody. It's a strange one. Would they consider keeping him on and bringing a new manager? Would that make any sense?
Maybe. I mean, he's a weird guy, right? And he obviously is very committed to Leeds. He likes it there. People are saying that he's far more ingrained in the culture of the club than he has been at other clubs. He's getting on in age. He apparently likes living in England as well. So would he accept a move up top?
Yeah.
Is that the guy you want? I mean, he's renowned for being this coaching savant. Is he an executive type of personality? I'm not so sure he is. I mean, would he put his bucket behind his desk in his office, sitting there?
Yeah.
Right. So my gut tells me that if they move on from Bielsa, they're just going to move on from him, and he wouldn't accept anything else. But maybe I'm wrong. You want to see the guy. I want to see him stay personally because I love the way Leeds play. No matter who they're playing, it's going to be fun. No one's more fun to watch than Leeds, and I give him respect for that. But it comes a point where survival is more important. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And whoever replaces him, they're filling some pretty big shoes. Don't forget that he did get them out of the league championship playing this style of football. So that the fans love him, and you need someone with a bit of charisma, I think, to replace him.
And they conceded less goals last season than they have so far, 54. So when they have a full team, a full squad to use, they're a very decent team. And that attacking style suits them, obviously, when you're at full strength. Coming up, obviously, I mentioned Spurs, Leicester, Aston Villa, Norwich, and Wolves. So some tough fixtures, but there's a couple winnable ones in there. And I think they can get at Leicester and they can definitely get at Norwich because anyone can at the moment. But for this game, if you do want to back Tottenham, there is some value in Tottenham plus both teams to score at plus 240. Not bad. Spurs have gone 10 games without a clean sheet, and we do know Leeds do love to score. But let's move on to another team who is sliding down the table and could actually find themselves in the relegation zone at kickoff. That's Everton, James, plus 900 against Manchester City, minus 345. I think that plus 900, I've seen 10 to 1. That's a big number at Goodison Park. As bad as Everton has been, I don't think they're that bad. I think they actually, they make a game here against Manchester City. Do I think they win? No. But I think at Goodison, it's going to be difficult for City to blow past them.
Yeah, I mean, there's been 2 different teams right under Frank Lampard. There's been the home Everton, where they look pretty good. I think 1 2 out of 2. And then there's been the away Everton, where they've been pathetic, losing 2 of 2. But they're facing a City team that's, injured and angry and not pleased themselves after that loss last week to Spurs. And they know also that they have to win these games because Liverpool's, really surging right now, just 3 points back. And I think City's so good, so professional that they're going to run roughshod over Everton. And it will just, once again, show the glaring holes in the Everton team and the work that Frank Lampard's got ahead of himself. So, I know 10 to 1 is really tempting. I get that, but I don't see there's a reason why it's 10 to 1.
Yeah, of
City
course.
don't lose 2 straight games.
Yeah.
They didn't do that, right?
I would never touch it. I just think that going to Goodison is actually difficult, especially under the lights.
Yeah.
With Frank, and they obviously need a result here. Everton really do. I mean, they're going to have some favorable fixtures coming up for the rest of the season, but still, I think here, if they can somehow pull off a draw, it'll do them wonders. But City, they've owned them at Goodison Park. I mean, 8 straight wins, 5 straight at Goodison. And City don't really lose back-to-back games. They've only done that twice in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Think about that. That's a team that bounces back.
Yeah.
Right? So, Pep understands the reality of the Premier League right now and what this team needs to do. Is seeing them go on a run of 10, 12 games, straight wins.
Yeah.
It's quite possible, right? So, Everton, a team still trying to find itself. And I know that hosting in Goodison can be a tough place to play, but it can also be a tough place to play if you're an Everton player, right? If you go behind early in that one, they can
Right.
turn on you very quickly. And they've seen that this season a lot. So, yeah, I know it's tempting, man. 10-1's always tempting, especially in this league. Anything can happen. Last week's Spurs, geez,
Oh
I
my
mean, who
goodness.
saw that coming? So,
Yeah.
but I think your money's safer avoiding this one.
I'm with you. I'm going both teams to score an over 2.5 plus 132, or go City and both teams to score a plus 190. I think Everton get one in front of that crowd. And City, they oddly leak the one goal when they have the lead.
Yeah.
They kind of taper off near the end of the game and they let that goal in for whatever reason. So I think just Everton being at home, I think they can get a goal. So I'm
One,
going to
one,
back that. Go ahead.
one reason for concern for anyone playing City now is the goal differential race, right? Because
Right.
Liverpool have, I think it's a 4-goal edge at the moment or thereabouts on City, which could come really down to the wire. It could be a really important stat given how
Yeah.
close they
Four
are
goals.
this season.
Mhm.
And City haven't always blown teams out like you mentioned there. They have been conceding goals at times, which over the whole of a long season can cost them. So I think now they understand not only do they need points, but they've got to put on a bit of a show. And that could terrify, I think, the rest of the Premier League.
This is a great opportunity for them with Liverpool playing the EFL Cup on Sunday
Yeah.
against Chelsea. Let's take a look at those odds. Chelsea plus 230, Liverpool, the favorites plus 125. This is a 50-50 game for me. I think Liverpool, in slightly better form at the moment, but these cup matches are usually tight. I mean, not more than 3 goals, I think, have been scored in the past 3 finals. Both teams healthy. I mean, outside of for Chelsea, they might be missing Reece James and Ben Chilwell, which they've been missing for quite
For a
some
while
time.
now.
I find it difficult, James. I don't know where you're at here to pick a winner in this one. I see it going to penalties, probably 1-1 heading into extra time, something like that.
It could well be penalties. Even Liverpool, as much as they've been winning games the last couple of weeks, they haven't looked fantastic, right? Against Norwich, they weren't fantastic. They found a way to win in the Champions League as well. Of course, they smashed Leeds, but we've discussed Leeds right now. I see a real tight fair as well. And don't forget, Chelsea are just really good at cup matches.
Yeah.
Who thought they'd beat Man City in the Champions League final last year, right? Tuchel knows how to play cup matches. He's got the troops that understand the mentality to win trophies as well. So both these teams need this, I think. And, Chelsea, obviously, world champions, but given their season, they're probably only going to be able to deliver this as a trophy to their fans. I mean, Champions League aside, possibly, I guess, but unlikely. And as for Liverpool, they need trophies, right? I mean, they're in this golden era for that club where they won a Champions League and they won a Premier League, and club's been there for a number of years now. But they're obviously huge tournaments, but they need more trophies in their cabinet over this era. And unfortunately for them, they're in this era where Man City are also playing at this outer world level, which
Yeah.
means that it's harder to win trophies. So when you get the opportunity, you got to take it. Under Jurgen Klopp, as great as they've been, they haven't been great in the domestic cups. So I think for them, in many ways, they actually need it more than Chelsea because they've got to show something for this season at least. They could finish this season with nothing, and crazy, isn't it? How good they played this season, and to come away with nothing. Here's a great chance to get at least one.
What do you think of Klopp going with Kelleher for this match? He's confirmed him.
He's confirmed. Mikel has been his guy. I like that. That's why players love playing for Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
Alisson will get his minutes in the big tournaments, in the Champions League, in the Premier League. We know that. He's got trophies in his cabinet as well. Kelly has been really good so far. He's not a weakness. Is he Alisson? No, of course he isn't. But he's good enough for a backup. And if you can show your team that you have faith in the understudies, I think that just feeds through the entire squad.
Yeah, confident keeper is a good keeper. I mean, we've known that for a long time. And also, he's got to hope that Thiago and Fabinho can both play because for some reason, when these two guys start, Liverpool, they don't lose. 18 games unbeaten, 17 victories in that time. I think it might be the perfect balance there, right? Because you have the defensive side with Fabinho and then the creative side with Thiago who can pick a pass out with either foot and anywhere wherever he wants to put the ball.
Oh, when Klopp signed Thiago, it was like, what? You got
I
Thiago?
love that player.
And me too. And you know what? You watch him play this past week when he comes on, his passing and his vision is the best in the team by an absolute mile. And when teams sit so deep against you, you need that player to unlock. They used to have it with Coutinho, right? And obviously he was brilliant for it. He left, and really that kind of player has been missing, I think. So in comes Thiago, and when he's healthy, he's just been fantastic. But it's just, can he get a run of games without hurting himself? So I love the combination, Fabinho and him. You throw Henderson in the mix there as well. That was, I think, Klopp's ideal midfield three, but they played so rarely together. Hasn't happened very much because they're all somewhat injury prone, which disappoints him. But yeah, I'm with you. Great players. Fabinho has been, I think he was the highest scorer in 2022, actually, up until I think last week when Salah became scoring goals once again, right? But,
Yeah.
he's wonderful as well. So that midfield looks pretty good.
I always found it strange when Barcelona let Thiago go to Bayern Munich. I never understood that. And he
Yeah.
went on to Bayern Munich and ended up being one of the best players for a long period of time. For
Well,
Chelsea, go ahead. Sorry,
no,
James.
so saying you read Guardiola's book. Which one is it? I forget which one it's called now. It's about his time in Bayern Munich,
Yeah.
and he said when he first got there, he was just intent on getting Thiago from Barcelona. Out of all the players at Barca, he wanted. Obviously, he couldn't get Messi, couldn't get certain players there, obviously, but Thiago was available. Let's get him, and sadly, it didn't work out for him because he was hurt all the time at Bayern Munich as well. But he rates him so highly.
Yeah, he's in that rare pool of midfielders. There's not many players who can do what he does and do it
Mhm.
so well and make it look so easy. And he's got some goals in him too. I mean, it's rare, but when he does score, beautiful goals as we've seen so far with Liverpool. For Chelsea, some good injury news on their front. Mason Mount, he obviously appeared in the Premier League this past weekend. It looks like he's going to be fit for this match, which I think is huge considering Hakim Ziyech could be out. Mount just seems to be the glue in that front three. Don't expect Lukaku to start. I don't think Tuchel's going to go there. When you have Kai Havertz, who seems to pop up with big goals and big games, why not play that fluid front three? Pulisic, he scored in the Champions League. So I'd expect to see Havertz, Mount, and Pulisic in that front three for Chelsea. And I think that's just a huge boost having Mount there for Tuchel.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the only way to play against that Liverpool, back four is to be fluid, move around, pull them out of position.
Yeah.
Whereas for some reason the way he plays Lukaku, he's more of a target man, which I think doesn't play to his strengths these days. But Van Dijk would handle Lukaku, I think. Whereas the way Havertz is playing right now, scoring some big goals as well. I'd be very surprised to see Lukaku getting back on the pitch. But hey, stranger things have happened under Thomas Tuchel.
I think so, but he doesn't seem to overthink in finals, unlike Pep Guardiola, which we saw
Yeah.
actually in the Champions League. I think that's one of the reasons why Man City didn't come away with the victory. Who did he replace? He started Fernandinho or didn't start Fernandinho? Something
Yeah,
strange in the midfield.
yeah. I think he played two holders, didn't he?
Yeah,
I
that's right.
think.
He played
Yeah.
two holders. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
didn't really make any sense because he
No.
didn't do that all season. And then whatever, Pep just overthinks.
Pep
But for
in his
this
mind.
one, I don't know where to go, but I do like both teams to score. Even money. I think there's too much firepower on either side. I can see Salah scoring. I can see potentially Mane even scoring on that side. And then for Chelsea, I mean, you have Havertz, Mount, Pulisic, as I mentioned. You have Conte driving from the midfield. I just see goals here. So I like a 1-1 heading into extra time and then flip a coin for me.
I was going to say the exact same thing. 1-1 for me as well,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then penalty shootout, as Mo Salah knows only so well, it could go anyway.
Oh, he's got a take, right, James? If they go, they
Don't put him at number 5
oh my goodness. Don't
and
put
get
him at
Mane in
5.
there as well.
Yeah. All right. So I don't see anything here so far from Conte. It looks like he's not there yet. But like I said,
Okay.
expect him to somewhat apologize. And then when Spurs lose to Leeds, he'll say the exact same thing. And then he'll
Maybe
go
he
on
won't show. Maybe he's quit. Maybe that's
Oh
what it
man,
is.
it was so I can't stand that stuff. It was I thought it was childish. I thought it was so unprofessional, but
I
this
know.
is who he is. I mean,
He's
the thing is,
whiny.
he did that interview 3 times. He did it pitch side, he did it at the press conference, and then he did it in a hallway in Turf Moor with Sam Matterface from Talk Sport. And he said the same thing every single time.
It's strategic, right? I mean, people say, "Oh, he's
Yes.
overly emotional," but he
Yeah.
is an emotional guy. But I mean, he's not dumb. He knows what he's doing, I think. And if you're Daniel Levy, I mean, you must know what you're getting with Conte. It's not like, oh, he surprised us with his volatility. Like
Yeah.
everyone knew this was happening, right? So I know they banned him from doing any more interviews in Italian, but maybe they should ban him from doing interviews in English as well, because
Yeah.
he's just embarrassing the club right now. Let's be honest. It's not a good look for Spurs at all.
I can completely understand his ego taking a huge hit here. You come to Spurs, it's not Inter, it's not Chelsea. We keep saying the same things. It's going to take some time, and it's just if he thought he was going to come in and change it within a transfer window or maybe even 2 transfer windows, and he's just completely naive. I mean, this is Spurs. I mean, they're Spursy. I mean, I hate that word because it's not really a word, but it's true. It's just how they are. They're up and down with their results. They go to City and win that game, and then obviously go to Burnley and drop points. And when he pointed kind of the blame at the players, like the coaches change, but the players don't. And you look, and he's kind of right. Hugo Lloris, Eric Dyer, Ben Davies, Son, Kane. You can lump Lucas Moura in there because he was under Pochettino as well. A lot of the players who have failed to win are still there. Yes,
Yeah.
they shipped out a bunch, and he shipped out a couple players himself. But there's that mentality is still there from the Pochettino era, and I
It's a
think that
culture
still
of
needs to be
losing.
recycled.
A culture of losing, yes. But at
Yeah,
the
it
same
really
time,
is. Yeah,
the guys you mentioned there, I get it, but I mean, they're all very good players.
they are. Yeah,
Certainly Kane and Son, you can't blame them. I know Kane's had a poor season by his standards, but Son's been okay. Dyer's been hurt. Mora is just Mora. I mean, I don't know if he's great or awful. He's one game he's like dominant in the whole world, and then he just disappears. Right? I don't
yeah.
understand that at all. Ben Davies, I think there's some question marks for sure, but I think they've got to do a rebuild absolutely. And I'm not sure Conte is the man for the job because he has such little patience. They want to sign young players. We saw that in the window. Young players they can develop, which is a good idea long
Right.
term. But is Conte ever shown the hunger to develop players? No, he wants ready-made products, and then he'll put them in a position to succeed. So
Yeah,
maybe it's the wrong fit.
this summer's window is going to be really interesting. If he's still with the team, I just want to know where they're going to go and how much money they're going to spend and who they're going to bring in. Because I even think if you can bring in the best signings, it's not necessarily going to make them a contender next season. I mean, when you have City and Liverpool, you just mentioned it. Liverpool been one of the best teams over the past 5 years, and they still hardly get a sniff at what Manchester City's doing.
Not to mention, United are going to spend this offseason with
That's
the new
right.
manager as
Yeah.
well. They'll be better next year, I would
Mhm.
assume.
Arsenal.
Arsenal's doing something right. They're building. I know there's been criticism of Mikel Arteta, but I think he understands how to build a team. And I mean, Chelsea aren't going anywhere. I mean, I can't see them being any worse next season for sure. So and Wolves are good. So I mean, Spurs, they could be out for a few years here. On the fighting for Europa League places, not Champions League places, which is what they were doing for most of their existence, right? I mean, there's been a few flashes in Champions League, but not that much. So because they don't spend the money that I think they have to spend. So it'd be all right. It's a huge summer, but you know what? When was the last time we said that it wouldn't be a huge summer for Spurs?
Yeah, that's true. It's always a huge summer in the Premier League now. So let's wrap this up quickly with a Conte quote. He goes, "Yes, I spoke to Daniel Levy. Our chairman knows very well that I'm here to help the club in every moment. I will do that till the end. That's the reality. He has great consideration about our job and the job of my staff. The chairman shows me great consideration every day. And for the reason I'm committed to this club much more because I know the consideration for me is very high." There you go, Spurs fans. He's staying.
There's some consideration is what you're saying.
There's some consideration. He's considering if he's going to leave in the summer or leave after the Leeds game.
He said nothing there at all, did he? He said nothing whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, this is going to go on. And I love that that this Leeds game is the first game on Saturday, 7:30 Eastern time here on the East Coast. So we'll see what happens with Antonio Conte. Hopefully for Spurs, he stays on. They win that game and they make a real push for the top four.
Let's hope so. Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to start the weekend off well with a bang, shall we say? Lots of goals, bit of drama, and I want to promise not to lead the Friday show with Conte next week again. I can't promise it.
No,
I want to promise it, but I'm sorry, I can't promise it. We'll see what he says this week.
I think we got an FA Cup match. Spurs play Middlesbrough, I think, on Tuesday as well. So lots to talk about. Ooh. Thank you so much, James. This has been Fast Money Football. Follow him at James Sharman on Twitter. You can follow me at The Real Bird V. And make sure, if you want to watch more parlay content, please head over to parlay.tv. Cheers, guys.